When Jesus preached, people were surprised. So if we want to capture the spirit of Jesus and the message of Jesus, and if we don't want to be boring, then we also ought to surprise people in our preaching. Now, how can we surprise people in a sermon when they've heard the good news over and over and over again? There's lots of ways to surprise people. First, pick a surprising scripture. Now, you can't do that every time, but at least some of the time. Pick a scripture that you've never preached on before. Pick a passage you've never wanted to preach on before. Pick a passage that perplexes you, pushes you, challenges you. If you do, you're likely going to say some things that your congregation has never heard you say before. You know, the Bible is full of books that rarely get preached on. Judges, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Letter to Philemon. And yet these books actually have a lot of subtle and profound truths in them. So get off the safe cycle of lectionary readings and surprise your congregation with what's actually in the Bible. Second, ask surprising questions. Ask questions that you know your congregation is wondering about, but are afraid to ask. Ask questions that Christians aren't supposed to ask. Similarly, present facts that are unexpected, but also undeniable. Facts that are facts whether we like them or not. Also, get out into the open truths that we know are true, but we try to hide. A good sermon should reveal those truths that we are trying to hide from ourselves. Now, when you lay this out there, when you lay out the questions and the facts and the truths, you have to do it in a sensitive way and a responsible way, but also do it courageously and with utter honesty. Believe me, people are surprised by honesty. Finally, use surprising stories and illustrations. For heaven's sake, avoid those canned collections of stories and illustrations that you find in books and on the internet. They are conventional, sappy, shallow, and out of date. What you want are stories that are fresh, that are unexpected. I prefer stories that are true, that actually happened, because if they actually happened, that adds to their shock. Now, there's a lot of stories out there on the internet that claim to be true, but if you do a little research, they're not true. They're fictions that have been foisted on a gullible public. So make sure, if you're going to say it's a true story, then make sure it really is true. Now, there are folk tales that are also very surprising, that have a nice twist to them. I have found that to be particularly true of Jewish folk tales. But stay away from, Aesop's fables and other kinds of stories that have predictable, conventional morals at the end. Take your cue from Jesus. Look at his parables. Almost all of his parables contain a twist. Almost all of his parables have a change in direction. Almost all of them have a surprise ending. And why is that? Because the reign of God is surprising. The good news is, at its essence, surprising, unpredictable, fooling us, unsettling us. The last become first and the first become last. So, if we are going to be faithful to the good news, to the nature of the good news, then our sermons should also be surprising. A sermon does not repeat the truth. A sermon reveals the truth. This is Ryan Algren, joining you in your commitment to preach no more boring sermons.